afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, fellow councillors. Please remain upstanding for the council prayer. Almighty God, grant to us all guidance, wisdom and judgment as we face the tasks before us, and enable us now and always worthily to discharge the sacred trust placed by the people in our hands. Amen. You want to do that first up?
Thank you, councillors. Just a change of format before the Mayor starts with the public council meeting. For those who haven't already heard, we just got a slightly different format today, and that's because there is interest in the PPP public part of the meeting, which Darren's going to run later, because it involves the Museum Governance Group project. And so we're going to do the public council meeting, followed by the public PE meeting, and then we're going to triple P meeting, and then we're going to go into the public excluded triple P meeting, and at the very last one we'll come back to the council public excluded. So we're doing the two open ones to start with, the two closed ones to start with, and at the end of the last one, His Worship will withdraw from the last item, which involves his legal case with the City Council.
Thank you for that. That's all you need.
That's all I need.
Apologies, anyone? Being none. Public forum, nothing there. And I think we have the declaration of interest isn't part of the agenda anymore, is that right?
No, it's just updated. Been updated.
Reminder to councillors to that date.
Okay, that's just there on the agenda as a reminder to councillors of the change there. Minutes of the meeting of council held on the 28th of May 21-20.
25th May, Your Worship.
Thank you. 25th of May 2021.
Your Worship, before they are moved, I would just point out that there was an amendment, well, not an amendment, but a change to the minutes circulated to councillors, and you can see it on the screen in front of you.
From Councillor Soper.
Happy to move with the amendment.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion, questions? Put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Against carried. Minutes of the meeting. We moved down to there. Minutes of the meeting of the Infrastructural Services Committee held on the 1st of June 2021.
I will move those, Your Worship.
Okay, seconded. Moved and seconded. Any discussion, questions? Put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against carried. Minutes of the meeting of Performance Policy Partnerships Committee held on the 8th of June 2021.
Move they received, Your Worship.
Second that.
Second they be received. I'll put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against carried. Minutes of the meeting of the Bluff Community Board held on the 14th of June.
I'll move that those be received, Your Worship.
Moved. Minutes of the Bluff Community Board held on the 14th of June 2021. So we
Second that.
Your Worship.
sorry.
Move that, Your Worship. They be received.
We've got a mover and a seconder.
We've got a move and a second.
And a seconder.
Say, I'll put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against carried. Minutes of the meeting of the Risk and Assurance Committee held on the 21st of June 2021.
I'll move that they be received, Your Worship.
Seconded.
Thank you.
Question of the Chairman. Those are recommendation to Council. Should that
be included in the moving of the minutes?
We'll put them separately.
Council authorises Worship the Mayor to sign a letter of representation for the audited long-term plan.
Yes.
That's a recommendation to council.
Can anyone help us with that?
Mr Mayor, they can be moved as part of the receipt of the minutes, or they could be moved separately. At this stage, the minutes, it has been moved that the minutes be received, and only that. So I'm assuming that those two recommendations will be moved separately after the minutes have been received.
Okay.
Or I could include the adopting of recommendations as well and receiving that.
Okay, happy with that?
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out.
All right, have we got a mover and seconder for that?
Yes. Councillor Podger and myself.
Thank you. I'll put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against carried. Now, where were we up to? Where are we up to, Claire?
Adoption of the long-term plan,
Which is number,
which is number 9, and Rhiannon is here to present her report.
the adoption of the long-term plan, and will be council officer will move that
Right, she'll present her report.
or present the report. Rihanna, oh, welcome to the meeting, Rihanna.
Thank you, Your Worship. Kia ora, councillors. So yes, I will take this report as read for the adoption of the long-term plan, our roadmap to renewal. I just want to take this moment to thank you all for the direction and guidance that you've given through this process in terms of developing the long-term plan, and to thank all the other members of the staff who have actually made this happen. I know it's been me at workshops, giving you lots of information and being the face at meetings for reports, but this is actually a joint effort that has been contributed to over the last 18 months by many people. I think that the plan that you've arrived at for the community is a good, strong plan, outlines your roadmap to renewal. So this report now is the final formal part of the process to present the plan, to present the audit opinion that has been provided by Audit New Zealand, along with the letter of representation. And it just notes those final elements: the financial strategy, the infrastructure strategy, the revenue and finance policy, and the rating policy, which are adopted alongside and as part of the long-term plan.
Thank you.
Your Worship.
Questions? Yes, Councillor Ludlow.
Thank you. I'm happy to move the 4 recommendations and echo the sentiments of Rhiannon in our gratitude to the staff for the amount of time that they've put into it. From a council law perspective, across all of the long-term plans that we've been through, it's the most engaged I've seen councillors. We've had really good engagement with members of the public. We got to the point where everybody was actually comfortably deliberating, having gone through the hearings process, for which we received some really good feedback, where we made the decisions in public as well. So this is, as I say, the most engaged and the most transparent long-term plan that we've gone through. So it's with a great deal of pride that I'm happy to move those 4 recommendations, sir.
I'd be very happy to second them on the same principles, Your Worship. Congratulations to the staff. Thank you.
Councillor Soper.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was indicating I was going to second, but Councillor Lewis has seconded. I just wanted to also say I think it's an ambitious and very robust long-term plan, and echo the thanks to the staff who put an enormous amount of time and energy into making sure that it was both robust. We councillors, I suppose, claim the ambition, but the robustness, thank you to the staff who really put in the effort to make sure that we had all the background, that we had a thorough consultation and very thorough discussion. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Yes, Your Worship, I'd prefer that those 4 recommendations are dealt with individually, because I have some opposition to recommendation 3.
Yes, I think that can be done. Councillor Edmondson.
Thanks, Your Worship. I guess I'd just like to echo the sentiments that everyone else has already mentioned. This is my third long-term plan, and it certainly feels like the most engaged this council's ever been in a strategic planning process. And when I think back to the very start of this process and the mountain of work we had to all sift through in order to get to this place, I think that everyone's done a really good job of being strategic in the way that we've been thinking about this, in a way that we've addressed the information and the issues and the projects that we've had. And I'm really excited that we've got a roadmap and that it's something that we can use in the future, that we can measure our progress against, that we can use to show the public how we're going on things, and how we can, when we go back to this process again in 3 years' time, show the public where we're making a change of direction if that's necessary, or where we've gone in a different way. So thanks also to everyone for all their really hard work.
Thank you. Councillor Pottinger.
Thank you, Your Worship. Look, I'd like to follow the same sentiment as Councillor Soper, saying that it's ambitious, but the key thing is, with the timeline presented in this long-term plan, it is achievable, and that's the key thing. It is achievable. We've set a guideline on how we're going to do things, where the money is to be spent, and a lot of common sense has been applied to this, and I totally support it.
Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And I have the same sentiment as my colleagues, but I have a sticking point that I've declared repeatedly on the issue of the museum. And so I just want to declare that up front. I accept that the long-term plan needs to be approved or not approved today because of these other issues that sit around the long-term plan, but I just want to express my opposition based on the fact that we have not listened to the public in relation to the museum project. Quite clear that the museum's been closed for 3 years. And if I'm honest, we've done little or nothing in that time. If you read the notes that are about to come up in the PPP meeting, in fact, we've done little or nothing around the museum for the best part of a decade. And so we're now stuck with a museum that's closed. We've had 3 sets of significant community engagements since August last year. So we had a professional survey done, some research done, which clearly showed that the museum was the top priority for the public to get resolved. We did our own public project prioritisation engagement, which again reinforced the museum. And lastly, we did the long-term public consultation process, which also reinforced the importance around the timing of the museum. So for me, it's not the overall package, it's just how long it's going to take to resolve this issue. I find it interesting that last year we received a paper very late last year from an engineering quantity survey report from the Chief Executive, and it said that the cost of the museum was 52 million odd. But it also importantly said that this project was a 37-month project, so that's 3 years, and I still struggle why we need 6 years to get this delivered. And it's time for our council to be brave and upfront. When I look back at the last long-term plan, and I wasn't on council at the time, I note that in the front end of that there are 6 projects. One of them has been delivered, and that's the hydroslide. The other 5 have not even been started. And so that doesn't fill me with confidence going forward. And I guess the challenge for everybody around this table, me included, is to make sure that staff are not blamed for the lack of delivery. It's the fact that councillors haven't held the staff accountable for the delivery of these projects. And this long-term plan, in my view, won't be worth the paper it's written on unless we ensure deliverability. And so I just wanted to express that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to the subject? Councillor Pottinger.
In reply to what Councillor Clark has said, I would totally disagree in the fact that the feedback I've had is that people are after a quality museum in such a way that our stadium is unique in New Zealand. They want a museum that goes into the future for generations, that will excite people, educate people. To throw money away in haste to achieve something because it hasn't happened is... Can I speak, please? Can I speak? Your Worship, can I
Carry on.
speak without interruption?
Well, nothing can be guaranteed, but
Okay,
we'll try our
right,
best.
right. So, I mean, there is the option of doing things in haste and potentially throwing away 40 odd $million. And what do you achieve? You achieve a replica of what we've had before. Sorry, I'm after something that was much better than that. I think we can achieve. The stadium is, again, is the example of what we can achieve, and what we're going to see later in the committee papers is how we're going to achieve it with a committee or a group, advisory group, that are going to deliver us something to consider.
Councillor Edmondson.
Thanks, Your Worship. I totally endorse what Councillor Pottinger has said, and would also go as far as to say it's slightly misleading to say that we've been doing nothing for 3 years. The Southland Museum and Art Gallery and Invercargill Public Art Gallery have worked really hard to create He Wakatuia, which is filling a gap. I acknowledge it is not a big museum, it is not a fancy museum, but it is what we have, and it is filling a gap for this interim period. And you know, there's lots of plans ahead for doing lots more things there, and for it to become something that's integral part of our inner city. I'd also just like to mention that comparing the 2018 LTP and the 2021 LTP is definitely not comparing apples with apples. We've already talked a lot about how this long-term plan is actually a strategic document, and I don't know whether that can be said to the same extent in previous LTPs that this council has done. And so I've got a lot of faith that this council has developed something that is achievable, and to do anything quicker, as Councillor Pottinger said, would be a disservice to the museum. It would be a disservice to the arts, culture and heritage sector in our community, and it would be a disservice to this council.
Councillor Ludlow.
Thank you, Your Worship. Following along a similar line, I guess one of the big changes that's happened between the 2018 LTP and this one is the ownership of the project has shifted, with the clarification of the ownership of the building, and that it actually belongs to the Invercargill City Council rather than as a Southland Museum and Art Gallery owned facility, and that clarity has come through with a great deal of research over the past 3 years. So who owns the project has shifted. The project then, as a city one, fits in with, as our roadmap to renewal points out, a significant number of really weighty projects. You know, the level of capital expenditure that this council's looking at over the next couple of years is a couple of 100% above where we've been in the past. It's significantly higher, and we've got in recommendation too that opinion from the auditor that points out, and we've already acknowledged, the complexity of the project and the concern around deliverability, and the age where many projects are underway. There is a lack of surety in some areas around the availability of workforce or capacity of contractors, supply of materials, and even the ability to get out and work if there's another lockdown. If I use, and I hope Councillor Scalp forgives me, but if I use the rebuild of ILT Stadium Southland as an example, they were very aspirational in what they sought to achieve, but in the interests of making sure they got it right, they ended up having to push out beyond the timeline that they said that they were going to finish in. Now, we could sit here and change the date that we want to see things finished by, and hope that some form of magic is going to make that happen. I would rather set a more realistic date for completion and have the pleasure of going, we've been able to finish early, if that can in fact happen, rather than to be in a position where we end up disappointing people or raising their expectations above deliverability. And I come back again to that caution that's been given to us by the auditor and by our staff repeatedly. So from that perspective, I'm interested in seeing things remain as they are, and it is key that everything around the LTP is adopted today, because otherwise there's a good chance we go back and start again, and we continue to rate based on the current rates, which is going to end up costing people in council more. There is, and I have explained previously, the opportunity to look at a variation to the long-term plan when we've got a chance to consider. And what's coming up in PPP after this is a process that's aimed at getting us as quickly as possible the correct information in a balanced way. That means that council's in a position towards the end of this year, the beginning of next year, to be able to make a really good, informed, realistic decision. It could be that that report comes back and says that it may be able to complete a project sooner. But we don't know until we get that information. I understand the aspirations that Councillor Clark has, and we've all heard the feedback about the desirability to have the museum reopened. We've heard that from the day that we decided to close the doors. But when we reopen them, we want to make sure that we've got it right, and we want to make sure that we've got it on time. We know that we want to have something that people are really pleased, proud and excited with when the doors open. We don't want to have to go back in afterwards and fix things later.
Councillor Keat.
Thank you, Your Worship, councillors. Just referring to what Councillor Clark mentioned about the museum, it's been closed now for over 3 years, and really nothing has happened. It's just been a lot of talk. I had a conversation with a group of young primary school children the other day. Not one of them have visited our museum as a school group. 3 of them asked me what the museum was all about. They said they've been to museums in Bluff and Riverton and other regions of New Zealand. Look, it's a part of their education, and they, as primary school children, will not be able to visit our museum as a group. Look, I care. I just hope other people around this table care. But the way things are going, there could be another generation of primary school children that may miss out. But we need action straight away, Your Worship. No mucking around, no going round in circles like it has been for the last 20 months that I've been on council. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. I'm aware that we transgress standing orders where you're only meant to speak once, but I'm notorious for if a debate is really robust, of letting people have their say more than once. But I think it's getting close to that time. Is there anyone who feels they've something to add to the debate? Councillor Soper.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not going to repeat anything that others have said. I'm just going to say that for me it comes down to, do we want what we've always had on this issue, or do we want something that we'll be proud to leave to the future? If that means taking a little bit more time to get it right and open something that we're actually proud to leave now, both for now and for the future, I think that we have put an enormous amount of time and effort into setting up Hei Wakatuia, which has been taking school groups, and I think that that will continue to fulfil that function and give our young people the idea that Councillor Keat has just referred to of what a museum is about. And there are other very good museums in our local area that will do the same, and we should encourage that those museums are also used because we are part of a region. So for me it comes down to exactly what do we want. If we want what we've always had, then we will make a hasty decision that we will regret and that our successors on this council will regret in the future, and that will cost more money. Taking a little bit more time to get it right and to deliver something that is exciting, that is new, and that is relevant both for the past that we're displaying and for the future that we hope to be part of that museum, is something that I think is very important to do. We have the expertise to take advantage of, and we should take advantage of it now.
Thank you. Unless anyone's got a burning desire to speak, I'll put it to the vote. Where do these appear on the, oh,
In the report.
okay. On your screen is item 1, 2, 3 and 4, and Councillor Clark has indicated you what?
I prefer them to be voted on independently as
Point of
opposed to
order,
block.
Your Worship. I think, considering the importance of this issue, I think we need the formalities here, and Councillor Clark needs to move for it to be taken in parts, because it has been moved as a whole.
We had a mover and seconder, Your Worship, for them to be taken as a block, so we need to. It's just a formal process.
That's all right. Well,
Your Worship, as the mover, and to give Councillor Clark his right to vote a certain way, I have no issue with the items being taken separately.
In a seconder, Your Worship, I'm quite in favour, not in favour so much, but quite in agreement that occurs.
thank you.
Thank you. Put it to the vote then. Item 1, received the report and adoption of the 2021-2031 long-term plan. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Note the Audit New Zealand letter of representation and opinion, which has been received by the Risk and Audit Assurance Committee on the 21st of June 2021. Put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Adopt a long-term plan including the following strategies and policies, which are contained within the financial strategy, the infrastructural strategy, the revenue and finance policy, and the rating policy. Put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against?
No, I'm opposed, Your Worship, and like it recorded.
Thank you. That could be noted in the minutes. And 4, delegate to the General Manager for Finance and Assurance the responsibility to make corrections to minor errors and omissions within the long-term plan, fees and charges, schedule and supplementary materials as required. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Your Worship, that brings us to the second part of the process, having gone and adopted the long-term plan, which is the resolution to set the rates. There are 4 recommendations that sit as a part of tab 9, that we receive the report resolution to set rates, and having set out the information in the funding impact statement and rating and revenue and financing policies. You can read the rest. Across on page 306 is the third resolution resolving that rates will be payable in 4 equal instalments on the dates as listed, and on 307 resolves to add the following penalties as listed in A, B and C. I'm moving them.
I
I'll
can second
second
that.
those.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Questions?
Ms. Christie is here to answer any questions.
Sorry.
Ms. Christie is here to answer any questions. If
Ms.
there are.
Christie, are you?
I can
ready?
answer any questions that any of the councillors have in relation. This is set out in the standard format and puts into effect what you've just agreed in the long-term plan.
You? You need a mover and seconder.
No,
for
you've
that.
Got
got
that.
a mover in Councillor Ludlow and a seconder in Councillor Amundsen. I think Councillor Scalp. No, he doesn't have a question.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. I'll put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Yeah, next one.
Mr. Grant.
Your Worship,
you.
can I just, on behalf of the, committee that's been looking after the program for working together on tab 10 is the report to the council with a range of 6 recommendations. I just note in terms of the report that the 30th of June will show in terms of the financial implication of the program post the Thompson review will be under budget for this year, and the budget has been set as approved at 420,000 for 2021-22. The working groups are back operating. You'll see the list of the working groups in the first tab, Appendix A. I just draw attention to councillors that we reduced the number of working groups from 5 to 4 and collapsed 2 into what's now known as support for councillors. And since the report was written, that working group has met, and Councillor Soper was appointed as the chair and Councillor Crackett as the deputy. So all of the groups are now up and running again post the LTP. Should also note there is a recommendation in regard to the 6-monthly review plus the Thompson review. So it was proposed as part of the original resolutions passed by the council in setting up working together that there would be a review at the 30th of June this year and another one in December. Risk and Audit has approved and recommended to the council the setting out of that review, which would take place starting next week if approved by council, and on the basis of that would report back to council in July, seeing what progress has been done for the first 6 months. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Clark.
Yes, and similar to with the long-term plan, Your Worship, could these recommendations be done individually? Because I know you've publicly stated that you're opposed to the recommendation 4, so I think it'd be helpful to do them individually as opposed to doing them in a block. And I'm happy to move them be dealt with on an individual basis.
So there's 6 recommendations there. We're happy to move those.
As a block or?
Councillor Clark's moved.
I've moved them, Your Worship, on an individual basis. So they'd be done as 6 recommendations.
Your Worship, I'm happy to second Councillor Clark's.
Wish to speak to it?
No, I don't wish to speak to it. I think it's straightforward, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, discussion? Put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
No.
Against, carried.
I just need to backtrack Your Worship.
Sorry,
Need to backtrack Your Worship, and there was the mover and a seconded both put that we deal with all 6 individually, not as a collective. So we'll just have to put each one separately.
Oh, I thought it was the other way around.
No,
okay.
definitely separately.
Starting at the top then,
Yep.
item 1.
Yes.
Someone who's in charge of the machine?
You are.
Oh, sorry. Received a report of working together update from the project governance group. So that gets put as item 1, does it?
Yep.
Is there a seconder for that?
It's all been done.
Moved and seconded. Put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Notes of updated changes to the working together framework. Remove it for that.
Just requires a vote.
Oh, they've all been, okay. Put it to the vote. I don't even need to put it to the vote.
Yep. Second.
Notes the impact of consulting that has been engaged to undertake a survey to evaluate project progress. Endorse the terms of reference.
Point of order, Your Worship. The mover and seconder asked that each of the 6 be taken individually, so each of the 6 does need a vote.
Absolutely.
The same mover and seconder has moved each one, but they need to be voted on individually.
So
We need to vote on number 2.
So if you'd like to put number 2 to the vote,
All right, item 2 we put to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Item 3 is the notes that Impact Consulting has been engaged to undertake a survey to evaluate project progress.
I'll move.
It's been moved.
It's been moved.
Put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Endorse the terms of reference. Is that right?
Yep.
Put that to the vote. Item 4. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Item 5. Notes of the 6 months review is scheduled for consideration by Council on the 27th of July 2021. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Notes of the 6 months review. Oh, I've done that one. Sorry.
number 6.
Number 6.
Professional development.
And number 6, the Councillors' Professional Development Program has begun with a financial governance workshop held on the 25th of May, and the scheduled workshop Legama from a governance perspective of the 30th of June. Put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried.
We now go up to the next item, please.
Your Worship, just before you go to the next item, I wonder if I could make an observation in case it passes unnoticed. And that is that the decisions that you took on the LTP and the rates are significant ones in terms of the Working Together program. You'll recall, councillors will recall, that there was a serious question raised about the council's ability to prioritise projects and to make decisions and stick to those decisions. Today, you have reached a significant milestone in adopting your LTP, not only as a reflection on the significant amount of work that went in, but also as evidence, I would have thought, to your community that you do have the capability and capacity to fulfil the expectations of you set out in the Thompson Review. So I think it's a milestone in a number of respects that I had a duty to acknowledge for you.
So you want that put to the vote formally? Or?
No.
No, it's not a matter for voting. So moving on to your report, you can talk to the council about what you've been up to.
Yes, now we're about to start. Is it on the screen or is it? No, I'll have to get it here.
It's a reasonable from the workshop.
He looked exasperated when he yeah, I thought so. Yeah, that's what I think.
That's one I've added. Just on to the Mayor's report now. As representatives of the community, we often have to get involved in tragic events within our region. 42 years ago, 25 people were killed on Mount Erebus in 1974, which was more than the Pike River mine and Canterbury earthquake victims combined. All the lights were left on at Invercargill Airport because the airport directors could not believe that a plane had simply disappeared. At a harrowing Royal Commission, Justice Mann found that there had been an orchestrated litany of lies. All we can learn from these disasters, like White Island and Pike River, is that accidents are likely to happen, and we should always be prepared for the worst. I've also listed my engagements and comment on just a few issues that I've attended. I'll put it to the vote that it be received. All in favour say aye. Oh, sorry.
I'll move that it be. Yeah.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. It's moved and seconded. Put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against carried. Now where are we up to?
It's the conclusion of the public council meeting, and so the meeting should now adjourn.
I'll move, Your Worship, that this meeting be adjourned.
Councillor, it might be easier to move into public excluded and then adjourn.
Okay.
Just the motion for it.
Sure. I'll move accordingly.
Second.
Moved and second. Put it to the vote. All in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against carried.
And now, if you adjourn the meeting.
And now the meeting will return to
PPP.
We'll go to PPP. So you might like to go into Councillor Loveland's seat.
okay.
Right.
Meeting of there are no apologies or items of public forum that I'm aware of. We have two major late items. One was listed as minor, but the Chief Executive has suggested that it's actually probably more than minor. And those are to be taken in public.
One's in public, one's in public excluded.
So the first one, which has to do with the DHP, is in public, and the second in public excluded. So would somebody like to move that they are received as major late items in public and public excluded? Councillor Pottinger, seconded by Councillor Lewis. Thank you. Any questions? If not, I'll put that. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Which brings us to the establishing of the governance group for reimagining the Invercargill Museum. Let me preface Mr. Gibbling's report with the fact that despite people holding different opinions, it is reassuring that people feel so passionately about our museum and art gallery. The step that Council is looking at now is not dissimilar to what happened with streetscapes, but is certainly on a much tighter timeline with a far greater workload. And I'd like to think that that probably reflects the urgency with which we have clearly heard that people want to see this proceed. With that, Steve, I'll hand over to you to present your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Your Worship and councillors. I'll take this report as read. If I may just add a few comments. So this is part of the LTP deliberations. Council resolved to establish this governance group, and this paper is enacting that decision. What we're proposing is that the role of this group is to develop a unique and compelling vision for the museum that would define the nature of the services for the community of Invercargill and solidify its role within the Southland region. In doing so, and in establishing that governance group, we've set out within this paper what we believe the roles of the governance group are and the advice that they will provide back to you. We've also identified within this paper the skill sets and the mix of skills required on that group, which are also set out in this paper. This is a very complex project that we understand the importance of this to the community, and so we think this balance of skill sets is the right skill set to get us the advice to help us make this decision. In terms of establishing the governance group, we're proposing that you also establish an appointments panel and that you delegate the role of appointing the governance group to the members of that appointments panel, and that group will appoint the 5 at-large positions and will make sure that they achieve that balance of skill sets required to provide that advice back to you. We'd also recommend that you invite the local rūnaka to appoint an iwi representative direct to that governance group. In terms of the timeframes, we're identifying that we will have a preliminary report back by December, which will provide initial advice as to the options of both location, which you've identified in your deliberations, as well as to whether or not the current option remains the option that is progressed, or whether or not there is another option that comes through. And that will be driven by the clear vision that is set out for this museum. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Steve, I've had some a range of questions here in relation to part of the recommendation, so if you can help me with those. I know I've put them to you already, and I'm pleased that there's, I guess, some movement on the time frame, which was initially February, coming back to December, so it's really helpful. And also that the group is looking to the wider issue of new versus re-strengthen museum costs and timeframes for the project. So I'm really pleased with that, because that's the way forward. But I do have some specific questions, so if you can help me with those. You've already answered the first one, which was could the or partly answered the question is, could the group meet weekly and therefore report back in 4 months, as opposed to meeting fortnightly and reporting 8 months later? So I guess you've answered that by saying there's some work in that area.
Yes, I'd like to clarify that, Councillor Clark, that the preliminary report will be provided before Christmas. However, that report might identify that you then need to undertake consultation through the annual plan process to make an amendment to the long-term plan.
Yep.
So just want to clarify that.
Yep, understand that. The second issue for me was how will interested groups, and I'll be one of them, I guess, give a viewpoint to the governance group. Do I have if you use me as an example, do I have an ability to do a report or physically front the group and give my views, and other people that may be interested may wish to do exactly the same as well? So is that an opportunity, or is this group going to be just primarily driven by what paperwork is put in front of them, and then go out looking for other expertise?
Thank you, Councillor. That's a good question. Look, in terms of this is one of the benefits of having an independent chair appointed, is that they will look at the range of advice and the discussion that has happened in the community in quite an open, transparent manner. They'll be able to consider to what degree other advice is provided or sought from that group, and then that will be brought back to the group to determine that. So I can't preempt what the independent chair will do. But we're indicating in this report that there is a range of technical advice that we believe they will need to provide in order to give you a clear decision both on vision and its impact on design, what they choose to provide both in their own research capacity as members of that group, or through what the independent chair asks us to find on behalf of them. I think we'll leave that for the chair to determine.
Two other quick questions, which we've discussed before. One was the issue in the document that was presented to us in the workshop, was around the cost for an iwi representative, and I've suggested to you that that should be kept at 15,000 because it was significantly more than that. I just wondered what your view was on that.
Yeah, one of the decisions that was, well, I guess your deliberations, we identified a provisional $60,000 for the advice, and we've then worked with the project management office to determine the range of technical advice, and we're indicating now that the costs are slightly more. Within that 60K though, we allocated honorarium for both the independent chair and also recognition that there might be other members requiring honorarium to get them engaged. That is certainly well within that budget. And again, until we've run the process of finding the members, I can't determine exactly what that number looks like, but we will be able to bring back a report to you identifying those costs.
I think that would be helpful because the original costs in there meant that the honorarium being given to the iwi representative was more than what I get as a deputy mayor of the city.
That was within.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Just the last one, and this may have gone by the way by now, but part of the costs we had in that original paper in the workshop also included what was described as cultural narrative. I'm not quite sure what that means because it had a figure of about 35,000 sitting alongside it. So yeah, you can help me with that. That would be great.
Yes, as part of this provisional sum, we've allocated a range of advice from technical, architectural, engineering, services, mechanical. We've also included a provisional sum in there for cultural narrative. Now, once once you've adopted this governance group and the structure for that, and we then will let that sit with the chair, and then we will come back with a detail of how we're what advice is coming back and how much that will cost. And so we've put it as a provisional sum in there. We thought it'd be appropriate to put it in now rather than not put it in and ask for more later if we needed it.
And as a final reflection, I noticed in the original documents you had money put aside for honorarium / cohar, and just wanted to give some personal advice on that. I think we get into all kinds of tax issues. If we start giving individuals cohar to the volume what we're giving, it really needs to be an honorarium because cohar is tax free.
No, that's acknowledged. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Councillor Kett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask a question? Having establishing this group, why aren't councillors involved? Appointment of councillors to this group? Any reason for that?
It is in the report. Steve, do you want to highlight the answers written in there?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Ultimately, this group will be providing you advice back, and that indication that will be towards the end of the year. I think the experience on streetscapes is the role of the councillor and councillors on that group. They, by default, become spokespeople for the group, which almost takes away the need for what we're proposing as the independent chair. So on the basis that council will be receiving all the advice and council is the decision maker in this, we felt that it was appropriate that we try to get the right balance of skills and not allocate roles to council when you're getting the advice, ultimately anyway.
Thank you. Just other projects council have had over the years, Mr. Chairman, like the library, they had councillors on that group, the swimming pool and the learner swimming pool and the civic theatre, the multi-million-dollar upgrade there. We had elected members from this council appointed. I think there was 4 on each of those different projects. I can't see why, like we're elected members, I think we should have, some of us should have an input. One thing I'm against is paying people to be on this group. If these people are approached and are passionate about their city, I believe they will do this job for nothing. I believe it's a waste of $110,000 to $175,000 paying people. That's all I've got to say. I'm against it.
So in response to that, if you want the best information, essentially these days you've got to pay for it, and you're looking for a lot of expert advice. And one of the things in trying to make sure we can get the report back to us in as timely a manner as possible, bearing in mind that everybody wants us underway as soon as we can, is there's going to be quite a workload. And that's going to impose on people's work time. So, you know, I think the justification for honoraria / coha, whatever you want to call it, is justified. You make a valid point around council law appointees, and I guess one of the rationale, there's reasons for and against. And I guess one of the rationale of not having councillors involved in this, bearing in mind that ultimately we are the decision makers, is to try and depoliticise it, because there are so many different viewpoints. It could be if any one of us is appointed, that somebody else might feel that they're not an adequate representative, and it can get in the way of the process. If we were having no involvement at all, if it wasn't coming back to us, if we were just expected to rubber stamp what it is that's put in front of us without putting back that perspective that we're there on behalf of the community to do once we've got the report, then I would have concerns. But personally, I think it's a good way of depoliticising the process. That's my view. However, it's open for comment by any other councillors. Steve, do you have any feedback on the first part?
No, look, probably just to clarify for the councillor as well, that the majority of the costs here is technical advice. So it is paying for engineering, it is paying for architectural, it is paying for a quantity surveyor and the project management support. That's the majority of the costs, so it's all professional advice.
Councillor Amundsen.
Thanks. My question is around, I guess, community buy-in to this process and the outcome of this. What is in place here to ensure that the governance group is actually going to come up with something that aligns with community, or that the community is willing to buy into? Because I know a lot of work, using the Streetscape Governance Group as an example, a lot of work went into kind of working together with the community to get feedback and to develop that. We've already done a bunch of engagement and consultation already about museums and art galleries and all those kinds of things, so I realise that's not a necessary part of it. But I guess I'm wondering what's to stop this governance group when, you know, only one of those skills is around arts, culture and creativity, etc. A lot of the other skills are more around project development and stuff like that. How are we going to make sure that that group comes up with something that is relevant and bought into by the arts, culture and heritage sector?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. It's a good question. These skills that we proposed in the report are not to be taken as one-offs. We're looking for a mix of skills and a mix of experience, and so to some degree we're expecting that everyone on that group will have some degree of link to the arts, culture, heritage, education and museum sectors, and it's, you know, the range of services that a museum, a modern service, provides is as much about science and education as it is about arts, culture. And so for me, that there is an element of, we're looking for that balance. We're also looking for the way in which they can then relate to and communicate to stakeholders. And there is an element of also, and you've touched on it, that we're not short of reports and consultation. And it's what this group does with it and turns it into action, both around the service and the design element, I think that is critical. There will be regular reports back to Council from the independent chair on progress. And I think there will be some process where we share the work and where things are at by this group.
Councillor Abbott, then Councillor Pottinger.
Just a thought really to come up with what Beck said. Excuse the voice. Could there not be a terms of appointment communication in the appointment of the independent chair? Would that help?
Sorry, I'm not following.
To take in the community involvement, could that not be a term of appointment?
There is a brief, but it's in PE.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would help.
A short answer to your question is yes.
Yeah.
Councillor Pottinger.
Thank you, Chair. Steve, I guess my question is, it's really asking you if I've got the right take on this, is that this governance group will bring back the ideas to council in December, and it's not them who are to communicate with the public, but for us to take on board their ideas, they present to us, we then formulate our vision for the museum, then we go to the public. Is that the way it works?
I think that ultimately that will be the way it works, because you're ultimately the decision makers on this approach.
Thanks.
Councillor Lush.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Look, I like the report and I like how it looks like it's the right process to get there. Are we happy with using the word museum, or has that been prescriptive in describing something before that's what they come up with? And I guess that's in light of the whole visual arts and the fact with Anderson's Park and things like that no longer being used.
That's a very good question. I think that's a great question that we'd actually be asking this group to consider. Look, when you look at what modern museums do today, you are looking at something that is not just about the history. It is about connecting our community not only with culture, but taonga, science and education, arts. You know, it is a bigger facility than is just one word described. And so I think there's an element of, we will see this vision come out, we will understand what that vision means for this service, and we will then understand how the design of this new building can be best reflected against that vision. Okay. Yeah, so it is a bit of a working title at the moment. Yeah.
I guess just as an addendum to that, you know, there are facilities elsewhere that have taken on names that do not incorporate the word museum. Hawakatuia, for example, Pukeariki.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
it's a good point. It may well not form part of the name. Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? If not, right, we move to the recommendations. There are 7 there. Should we have a crack at moving them in a block, or do we want to take them individually?
I would like to move them as a block.
As a block.
Second that as a block. Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
thank you. It wasn't a tongue-in-cheek. I mean, if somebody wanted to thresh something out, I'm quite open to it. However, it's been moved and seconded 1 through to 7. I'll put that. Councillors, all in favour?
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Would you like your vote recorded, Councillor Kett?
Thank you.
Thank you. That moves us to the paper that you've got from Andrew Cameron around the Southern District Health Board Dunedin Hospital review.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Andrew is here if you would like him to speak to it, but I think that councillors could well have had the opportunity to read it. If I could explain to you that the reason for it coming to you today is because the Mayoral Forum meets on Friday the 9th of July. This is an issue that is originating here as a result of our perusal of cabinet papers, but really is a Southland issue and should be referred to the Mayoral Forum.
So there are 2 recommendations, councillors. Councillor Soper, are you moving, or are you? No, you'll be declaring. And
Mr. Chair, I am declaring or bringing to the attention of council my declared interest that I am an elected member of the Southern District Health Board. However, in this case, I do not see that as an interest that prevents me from.
So it's an interest, not a conflict.
Exactly.
Thank you.
But
Moved by Councillor Clark.
Attention.
I'm looking for a seconder.
I second it, Chair.
Councillor Scout gave me the knacky nod. Councillors, open for discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Councillors, we'll now move into public excluded for the 2 items as outlined. Just a reminder to members of the public, once we've concluded the PE part of performance policy and partnerships, that we will then reconvene the full council, but it is in committee. So I'll move that we go into public excluded for the reasons as outlined, and thank members of the public and the press for their attendance. Of course, we're excluding the external advisors who are allowed to remain with us in that motion, which I think is noted in there. Is there a seconder?
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. I'll put that. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.